So that's ish enough. Okay, for those who don't know me, my name's Dave Margulis. I'm the president of the Keystone State Chapter. I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening, the panelists, all of our attendees, and certainly our co-sponsors from the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public and International Affairs. So not only are they co-sponsoring, but they're also the Zoom hosts for tonight, which saves you from certainly my trying to handle the technology. So that's much appreciated. This is the second of 4 of our virtual panels. And the idea behind these was to feature the talent and accomplishments that we have of public servants in Pennsylvania. As I became president, I don't think I was aware of just not only the variety of things people do, but the number of projects that people are working on and what they've achieved over the years. And that's been one of the most gratifying things. And I figured, well, why go out and look for another, someone else to talk to us where we really don't get an opportunity to hear what each other are doing and what partnerships, and particularly in this case, we've been able to form over the years. So that was the idea behind that. First, we had a practitioner partnership. This will be the first of 2 a practitioner panel, rather. This will be the first of 2 partnership panels. The second one is on October 29th, and that's we'll hear from some City of Harrisburg council members and people in the Penn State Harrisburg School of Public Affairs. Then on November 17th, we have a student panel, and I would encourage all of you who have students that seem particularly inclined toward public administration to join us for that. We always welcome non-members, and what we would do in that case is they could either contact the email address for the chapter, or you can pass along the Zoom information. As far as tonight is concerned, as we listen to the panelists, I would encourage you to think of some of the ideas that you either have or have tried to implement, and you might be able to run some of those by the panelists, because as we've been discussing before, Connect has very extensive partnership network and over a long period of time. So they've certainly had their opportunity to see which things work and which things don't work so well, and to come up with some new strategies. The agenda tonight, let me run by that, is that we consider the first hour to be our formal session, and I'll make an introduction and then turn it over to Dr. Dietrich. And then we'll hear from the moderator and the panelists. We'll have a more typical Q&A session. And then at 8 o'clock, because some people have told us that they have to leave at that point, we kind of stay on, leave that more as either just continue the Q&A or just have open discussion. just do some networking, whatever people want to do for that half hour. But for those who can't stay with us for the, for more than an hour, that kind of sets it off in that manner. So with that, for those of you who do not know Dr. Dietrich, Sabina is Associate Dean of the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, and probably if I use GSPIA, which you're very familiar with, the others, that's what we're talking about.
Doesn't roll off your tongue, right, Dave?
Yeah. It isn't the first thing that rolls off my tongue in the morning, but I'm getting used to it. And Sabina is a member of the Keystone State Chapter Board of Directors. She's been very active, helpful, and a great idea person for the organization. She's spent many years committed to community outreach and engagement. She's led numerous research efforts. She's been co-director of the Community Outreach Partnership Center, director of the Urban and Regional Affairs Program, developed partnership projects. One of the more recent notable one is the Pittsburgh Neighborhood and Community Information System. She has a PhD in city and regional planning. There she focuses on nonprofit sector and higher education institutions and their relationship to their regional communities. She's a past recipient of the Chancellor's Distinguished Public Service Award and was recently selected for induction to the Urban Affairs Association Distinguished Service Honor Roll. So I wanted to get that in, and thank you, because I think that's a very recent one. If I wanted to provide all of the background on all of our distinguished speakers today, it would take the whole hour. So at that point, Sabina, why don't you take it and run with it?
Thank you very much, Dave. It's my pleasure, and welcome to everybody. We're so proud at the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, the University of Pittsburgh, to host tonight's ASPA Keystone Chapter meeting. I'm so thankful for Dave and to all of you for the wonderful support and everything. Of course, I've got to do a shout out in my proud GSPIA stance that we are the winners this year of 3, plus I'll count Marita, but 3 of this year's chapter awards: Emma Yord, our student award; Dr. Jennifer Burt, outstanding scholar practitioner; and tonight's panel, which will be led by Connect Executive Director, another award winner this year of the Keystone Chapter. And then, of course, Marita Kelly. I don't know if Marita's here yet or not, but she is our alumna, and she won the Lifetime Achievement Award from the chapter this year. So congratulations again to all of you. It's just outstanding, and we're very proud at GSPIA to have so many successful people in our field. I have the pleasure tonight of introducing all of you to GSPIA's new dean, Dr. Carissa Slaughterbuck. Dean Slaughterbuck comes to GSPIA from the Humphrey School of Public Affairs at the University of Minnesota, where she was associate dean for many years, and before that, she had a number of other positions, including she is professor. She was professor at the University of Minnesota. Her research and extensive community engagement has focused on many issues that all of you will know and love in environmental and land use planning and policy. She is a planner by training. She is FAIC as well as PhD. She finished her PhD at Florida State University, and before that was a Master's in City Planning at Clemson University. I'm so happy for all of you to meet Carissa tonight. So Chris, in the interest of time, let me just turn it over to you for greetings to our Keystone Chapter of ASPA.
Great.
Welcome.
Thanks, Sabina. And thanks, David, for kicking it off. I'm really happy to be here. This is the end of day 4. So I'm brand new, but diving in and getting to know lots of folks and having lots of great conversations over the last few days. So I'm really excited that this is one of the great stops on my first few days. So I've heard a lot about the ASPA Keystone Chapter, certainly heard a lot about great alums and friends of GSPIA that are involved in the chapter, and just the important partnership that the school has had with all of you, all of the great work going on around the state. So I'm new to Pittsburgh, excited to, as soon as COVID is over, get out and get to know this state really, really well. I'm excited to visit Harrisburg and really deepen connections that GSBA has with the state, with communities across the state, and with all the great organizations that are working on issues of public affairs and international affairs, public policy, and of course, urban planning as well. So I wish we could do this in person, but I'm excited to have this initial introduction, and I hope we'll have lots more opportunities to connect going forward. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dean Slaughterback. That's great. We can't wait, Dave, to get our dean out to Harrisburg when we can all travel again. And then we can introduce her to the wonderful road of the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Its anniversary, I think, is just being celebrated this year, if you can call the celebration of the Turnpike an actual celebration. But as we all know, we will get Dean Slaughterback to Harrisburg at some point so she can meet everybody in person. And
Definitely.
Thanks so much.
I'm excited. Thank you.
I want to now just turn it over to Lydia Morin, who's our Executive Director of Connect. She has extensive community experience in our area from McKees Rocks and other places. She is very active in EcoDistricts, being part of, we have a wonderful set of communities on the North Shore of the Allegheny in the EcoDistricts world. And Lydia is one of the contemporary activists in that world, but so many things that she's done in Connect, I'll say too numerous to mention, and so many awards. But Lydia, it's your panel, and let me just turn it over to you to get started. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Sabina. So yes, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Dave, and all of the Keystone ASPA chapter for the award. It's, it's nice to just be recognized. And I know when I announced it to our Connect membership back when we found out in May, they were thrilled to have received it. And so we're honored to be here. We're honored to share a little bit more about our work and hear about what you're working on across the Commonwealth and see if there's, stuff that we can share. So I thought I would kick it off with a quick who, what, why of Connect, and then we'll go right into the panel. So I didn't want to, do too many slides, but this is slightly academic. So here we are. Hope everybody can see this. I love to show the map, first of all, of us all working together for change and, our mission. You look at Pittsburgh, it's a big yellow block, but look at all the other colors of all the municipalities around it. There's so many folks who are mayor and council and manager, all leaders trying to work together. And it's awesome to have Connect doing that. We've been lauded as a national model, and Dave and Mary Ellen have been at it from the beginning, so they'll have plenty of stories about that, and everybody else who's had the chance to speak on behalf of Connect as they go to other conferences and that sort of thing. So who is Connect? This is always a quick question, and it's the members are the municipalities themselves, not the individuals, but each member municipality designates at their organizational meeting in January 1 to 3 elected and appointed officials to be representatives of the executive committee. And you'll see here a picture of our executive committee around our big table where we have our annual legislative session and we pass our slate of agendas, which in nonprofit land maybe sounds a bit like ratifying a strategic plan. We also have a board of officers. So when you think about what 1 to 3 representatives from 30 to 40 governments looks like, you need to have a steering committee or a board. And so we're not a nonprofit ourselves, but we do have our board of officers. And so a lot of thought has gone into the board of officers, and we'll talk more about how bylaws have evolved over the years and, which positions do what and how we put job descriptions into the bylaws and the sort of stuff that really lessons learned along the way. But it's always the county executive, it's always the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, and our chair and vice chair are always elected officials from municipalities. And then we always have a treasurer secretary that can either be a manager or not a manager, but then also a manager representative. And so it's a nice, and we always keep the immediate past chair in the loop. I think that's a really important thing. As soon as you're done, you're not actually done. we need you for that institutional knowledge. And so keeping those folks in the loop for a long time has really been an important part to our success. You know, people ask what is Connect all the time, and it's hard to describe, but first and foremost, we're a network of all these government, and we do intergovernmental affairs. You know, it's been disinvested for decades, the notion of having funding for facilitation and communication among governments. And so, you know, Dr. Miller saw that whole 15, 20 years ago before even Connect came, and he knew it was a problem he wanted to solve. Since then, we've become, you know, very much a policy think tank. We've incubated and spun out programs and policies. And we do really work as a membership organization. The relationships and trust are everything. And then the part that some folks forget that is really important is that we're an initiative of the university. And so we live at the Center for Metropolitan Studies, or known as their flagship initiative. And it's a great point of access and a pipeline for public administrative talent. We joke all the time that our meetings are GISPIA alumni events, but it's not actually a joke. We've got seriously connected alumni. And that's something that we started playing around with, is having these connected alumni events, and it's gonna be fun. So keeping in touch with everybody. Why Connect? I'm sure I don't have to super explain this now, because we'll have the panelists explain some of it as they talk about, you know, the formation and what happened there. But, you know, we're very fragmented. We saw the map. There's so many of us. Who can really connect with all those people at once if someone's not intentionally leading that, and there's not a lot of intention around it? And so all about the busting, all about the collaborating across sectors and political boundaries. So what do we do? Because it's always hard to just say these things, but, you know, we convene, we communicate, we co-develop research and advocacy agendas, we incubate, we represent, connect. You know, there are tons of these policy working groups that have a lot of city representatives usually on them from the city of Pittsburgh, but they don't as often, because those folks are paid to do that job all day. But as you'll hear from our panelists, a lot of our councilmen and women and commissioners and mayors, they have full other day jobs. They can't go to every meeting about the region. They really benefit from having a plan and a shared vision with all these other governments, and then having me as an executive director and our staff be able to sit on those working groups on their behalf and get their municipalities and their voices at the table. We always joke, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and Connect works really hard to make municipalities a big, loud voice on the planning table. And overall, this is just, we engage. This is community engagement and community engaged learning, all of that. I won't go through all of this, but you can sort of see a history of growth getting bigger and bigger, with larger problems being solved by more and more partners, everything from, you know, the Three Rivers wet weather and the stormwater regionalization, to working with PA1 call to develop planning software for the entire state, to developing the community paramedic program, which has now saved our municipalities $1.8 million in not sending a $1,000 ambulance to, you know, repeat causes of distress due to, you know, drug and alcohol or mental health. And so you can see all of this on our website as well. Lots of great stuff. Currently, we have 3 really robust working groups, and these came from a visioning session. And we attached the GISPIA capstone course to the working group. So each working group has a policy area being deeply dove into by GISPIA students, and then that'll inform a year of work. And it's been just such a great partnership that way, of having our students, you know, digging into best practices, cutting edge research, and then taking that back to a working group of the practitioners who can do something with it, because they've asked the students for that work. It's not so much students saying, oh, I'd like to research this, but it's Connect coming to GISPIA and to Connect saying, we need a policy brief on this, we need details on that, or what does this look like in other places? And that's what they do. This is actually out of date. It's probably even a bigger web now, but 2 years ago, I wanted to look at all the different partners we have on our working groups and who they intersect with, really getting into mapping out our network and finding out what levers can be pulled on which policies. We're getting into bigger stuff. So taking a look at everyone all the work on each working group. And so you'll see these three kind of circles here. This is the I and U. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but there's the infrastructure and utilities working group here. And so there's folks like Allegheny County Conservation District, Three Rivers Wet Weather, Alcosan, PA One Call, the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission. You'll see right here, it interacts with the infrastructure and utilities group, but also the environmental and economic development group. And then in the economic environmental group, you see the city of Department of Permits and Licenses, the Port Authority, Sustainable Pittsburgh, Economic Development South, different kind of CDCs, that sort of thing. And then you'll see our public safety and health group, so many different nonprofits there whose mission is to get policy passed or to, innovate in that way, but they can't do that without the elected officials at the table. And no one is better at bringing the municipalities, elected and appointed officials to the table than Connect. And so that's why these working groups are really valuable for both Connect members to get access to these extra resources, but then also for these, NGOs to come in and have direct access to their elected and appointed officials. One thing we always, every couple of years, we do a membership engagement survey, and constantly engaging our membership and making sure that they're leading our work more than anything is really important. And if we're not, if members aren't really motivated by their highest priority, they'd likely not show up as often as they can because they're all volunteers. So we really make sure that we're keeping their highest rated policy priorities in this monitoring or implementing phase. And I'll talk just a little bit more about that in a second. So right here, so what we have, I think we're kind of on a biannual visioning session where when I got that first membership engagement survey, there were 19 high priorities. And I thought, well, that's a tough cookie for an executive director. I don't think we can have high priorities. And so we worked out, we can have different stages of engagement and they can all still be high priorities. And so it's exploring, monitoring, and implementing. And we tried to have exploring be, when an organization comes and says, this is very urgent. So for example, with COVID or the municipal finance crisis, that became a top priority very quickly in the exploring and monitoring area. So each of these working groups have an exploring, monitoring, implementing set of policies, but the implementing is where the majority of the resources and the energy go for the staff and interns to make something happen. But monitoring is really important too, because that's what gets us to the point where we can get things funded and we can get support and partners, et cetera. So that's where the Connect capstone comes into play. That's where hearing from our NGO partners who are tracking things comes into play. And that's where we find out who are our champions within Connect going to be on that kind of thing. And so that was a hopefully not too painfully long who, what, where, when, why of Connect. And I'll just bring us back to the panel. We're going to go through, and Dave has prompted us with, how did you form and sustain your successful partnership? What are significant driving and restraining forces affecting your partnership? And what lessons learned that could be transferred to other organizations? So here, I'll stop sharing my screen. We'll come back all together. And I'm going to actually go for Dave Miller and Mary Ellen Ramage to ask that first question. They've both been there from the beginning. And I'm just going to add the spotlight to you, Mary Ellen. And if you wouldn't mind chatting us up. And Dave, feel free to unmute. And actually, Dave, why don't you start with the idea? And then Mary Ellen, why don't you pick up with how he got you hooked?
Sounds good.
I think you're muted, Dave. Let me just see. There you are. Are you still? Oh, can you unmute?
There we go. There we go. So I want to first thank Sabina for that excellent presentation. And there are so many people that are excited that we have a new dean, and a new dean that's, I think, going to pick up some of the challenges that we've been confronting for the last few years. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, I have to say very quickly in terms of what we try to do on a financial basis is we tried to be financially stable since year one. And we've been very successful with the foundation community. in terms of putting the money together. And one of the favorite stories I tell is back in 2008, when we were considering getting Connect together, I sort of played like marriage broker, and I went and talked to the city and said, the city thinks you're pretty cute. Are you going to come to the dance next Saturday night? And the city said, yeah, I guess maybe we will. And then I talked to the suburbs and said, well, the city's going to be at the dance next Saturday night. Are you going to want to come? And they said, yes. And from there, my next stop was to the foundations. And I said, I got the city coming to this meeting. I got the other communities coming to this meeting, but I don't have any money. And the only way we're going to pull this off is if we make sure that we invest and fund in this thing from day one. So for really the first 8 or 9 years of Connect, it's truly been a partnership with the foundations that have provided that support. And as Lydia suggested, we had 19 highest priorities a couple of years ago. And I give a lot of credit to Lydia for the way she's restructured organizationally, so that I think we can have a reasonable number of priority tasks. And I guess finally, to answer your question, Mary Ellen is one of my favorite persons in the whole wide world, because when we went to that initial meeting, and it was Halloween Eve, no less, Halloween Eve on October 2008. And the message that we tried to project from Connect is, we're not trying to do with any municipalities, do away with any municipalities. That's been our public policy for the last 40 years, and look where it got us. What we want is, we want to form a partnership between those municipalities, and particularly the larger municipalities, to undertake the activities I think we need to grow and be successful. And Mary Ellen goes, by Jesus, that's the first time I've heard somebody come to a meeting and not have my existence as a municipality threatened. And I think there are a lot of people who felt the same way, and we've tried to project that same character ever since we started. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Dave. Thanks, Lydia. Thank everyone. Dave pretty much captures the interest. There were so many of us at that meeting, pretty surprised at how many communities had come, but we had just come through this period of where discussion and legislation was put out about forced consolidation, and people didn't feel communities of a certain size and a certain financial demographic were viable, and that they shouldn't even exist, and maybe their people lived in floodplains, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I know I went ready to duke it out with somebody, because those are the same communities who helped build the region. They really did. The ring around the city kind of got pushed aside after we did all kinds of initial, transportation started along the waterways. So a lot of the tiny communities were along the waterways. And then as progress went on and highway systems were built, we were cut off. We were, I can say for my community, we lost over 500 homes over the years to highway projects. People say, the population was this and it's this now. What did you do wrong? It's like, we didn't do anything wrong. So it was so refreshing, because it was a meeting at a time where we were just going through that, where people were saying it's taxpayer waste. And here was Dave talking about something that was, joining people together. It was like this positive aspect of many things joining together instead of many things melding into something else. So it was, I know I raised my hand and I was shocked that was where this was going. And I can tell you, there'll be other opportunities probably. I know my community has had opportunities that they could never have, that have come along through Connect, with having conversations with people at the health department, like serious conversations with serious players who really can help make a difference. And my problem, though it's in a tiny community, relatively speaking, is still a big problem, whether that be the opioid problem, stormwater. Those are all relative to size of a community. We're talking about people's lives and people, one person, one person, one person. So, you know, I love it. And I can tell you what it has done is lifted people up as opposed to pushing people down. And I credit Dave for his vision and everyone in the university. It's just been a wonderful experience. And, you know, it's very unusual to stay in an active role in organizations for as long as, say, I have. But I have gained something every year, every meeting that I bring back here to the people in my community. And, you know, I can't put a dollar figure on that. So thank you all. And I'm happy to be here tonight and be with you all. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Mary Ellen. You know, that actually kind of teed up what Steve was talking to me about a little earlier. I think Tim too, just what got you really involved and how did you stick with it for so long? Because Steve and Tim, I think you've been here 6 and 7 years respectively.
Yes.
Steve, tell us about it.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you everybody for getting the opportunity to speak tonight. For some of you who do not know me, my name is Steve Buter and I am the manager for Carnegie Borough. I've been with the municipality now for 10 years and I've been the manager since 2013. And just a memory of Connect of mine is having the opportunity to meet Dr. Miller before I became a manager. They were having some sort of event at the Carnegie Municipal Building. And I had the opportunity to speak with him a little bit about the GISPIA program and, you know, potentially having the opportunity to visit there. And one of the things that caught my attention was, you know, if you are a manager and have experience, you make it, let's say, a reduced tuition. So that was one of the things that always stuck with me. And I did have the opportunity to start my GISPIA training, but with life and just putting my focus into my manager role, I haven't had a chance to complete that, but that is still something, you know, on my goals. So just having the opportunity to, you know, even be the manager representative for the last few years, I look at Connect as a group that is always continuing education. So even though I don't have that chance to be officially in the class, I still have all of my peers and other municipal representatives that I can reach out to at any point in time. So having a group that always has arms that are open to other individuals has just been extremely helpful to me with somebody who doesn't necessarily have, let's say, a municipal planning solicitor background, anything like that. So, and one of the things that has always been great with Connect is you can put in as much time as you need to get out what you would need. So if you're one of these people, like Lydia said, that you know, you have a full-time job, you know, you can attend things as needed. But for myself, you know, I'm in the role that is there day to day. So regardless of what other items I may have going on, I can always set time aside to learn something. And even though there may be times I feel like I might not have much to provide input wise, just with my experience level, I have so many different managers to look up to that I've been able to take different learning lessons from, both successes and failures. And I just try to apply that to you know, my day-to-day role with Carnegie Borough. So you know, there's so much to try to put it into words, but you know, it's been a pleasure, and I really plan and foresee myself staying involved with Connect, even though I'm no longer in that manager position. Hopefully I'll be able to pass that some of my knowledge along to the new individual in that position. So that's my feedback on that.
You're gonna have to, Steve.
Yes, thank you.
So we have two former chairs of Connect here, both Brittany Reno and Marita. And I think that they have had the unique opportunity of really seeing what was working really well and some things maybe to pull away from. I might start with Marita just because she was chair before Brittany, but I know there were things, you know, Connect, like we said, lots of priorities with Connect. How do you keep them? How did you sort of, you narrowed it in your time, and I'd love to hear more about, you know, what expanded and what didn't make the cut and how you did that.
So thank you, Lydia. Always great to be amongst the Connect family and all of the connected people. I just love how we've leaned into that word. So for those who don't know me, my name is Marita Garrett, Mayor of Wilkinsburg, former chair of Connect. I believe it was 2018. So I've actually been a part of Connect to see all three executive directors when I was looking at the point. So I came in the last year, Kathy Risco, then Kristen Michaels, and now with the illustrious Lydia Morin. And so one of the things, you know, when I first joined Connect, and it's kind of interesting how I joined. I was the new person on council and also the youngest. And so they were just like, hey, let's just put her on here. She can go out to the different meetings or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I don't even know what's going on. So I go to the first couple meetings. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is so cool. Like all these municipalities coming together. And the reassurance was that no matter how different a Wilkinsburg, seen from an Etna, from an Aspinwall, from a Sharpsburg, we all had a common thread. And seeing how that developed into the multiple different working the working group committees was really great. So one of the issues still working on, but that I have brought to the Connect table, and I wasn't sure how it was going to be received a few years ago, was the issue of gun violence as a public health epidemic. We obviously have declared and done great work with the opioid crisis as a public health epidemic, but you know, gun violence is one as well. And not all communities necessarily deal with community gun violence maybe to the rates as Wilkinsburg. But what I thought was really great was all the membership was supportive of that. And so we passed a resolution to really address that back in 2017, 2018, but even more so how that has expanded into the health, social services, and public health working group, understanding that all of these are tied together. So to me, that's one of the strengths of Connect, is that no matter how different, quote unquote, a community or municipality may seem, that we all band together and really show that support to do the work to however we can to move it forward. So really seeing that, but even more so how we've been able to streamline that so that it really in a way maximizes the power of Connect by, you know, having those three target focuses and filtering in there. So just, you know, seeing it from, I believe, 2014, yeah, that's when I got on council, to now, I just, it's just absolutely amazing. And obviously, you know, shout out to Gispia, getting to know Dave even more, and Sabina, and meeting the wonderful staff. Can't wait to actually meet you, Dr. Slaughterback, you know, when this clears up or whatever we want to say. But just, you know, couldn't be more proud of our organization and grateful for this award. So thank you, David Marlis, for this honor too.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You know, that really, the intersections of everything, like Connect is a bunch of linkages, right? It's the linkages between the people, and it's the linkages between these things. And so Tim, I think you were really waxing poetic on that before the meeting even started. Do you want to speak a little more to what you get most out of Connect? You're muted though. We'll give you a second. There you are.
There, is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, no, thank you. Yeah, I think I was before the panel started. So yeah, it sounded impactful back then. So hopefully I can repeat it. One of the things that I, you know, and back to a little bit with Sabina when we were talking about where we grew up, you know, growing up in a small town and being back in Pittsburgh, a lot of the people I grew up with were like, oh my God, I can never live in a, you know, big city. And it's like, the beauty of Pittsburgh is we're like 20 little Shemokins all next to each other. And, you know, the Shemokins are us and Wilkinsburg and Sharpsburg. And we have all the same unique problems. So when I got on council, it became apparent to me that, like, my day job is I'm a CEO and owner of an ad agency. And I've always said, the only thing that is bad about stealing a good idea is never executing it. And in advertising, we tend to be the underbelly of the universe. And I realize government's not too far from it. So I was like, how do we take all of these great ideas and what's the harm of saying that, I learned this from Wilkinsburg or Brittany from Sharpsburg or Steve from Carnegie. It was like, and there was this level of, I don't know if it was indignant pride that everybody had, that we had to figure it out ourselves. And again, from advertising, it was like, I'd love when I would travel and I would see a great commercial out in Denver. And I was like, I can't go back to Pittsburgh and steal it and start doing it for somebody. So when we would be on these, when I go to the Connect meetings and I go back to our council meetings, all I was doing was regurgitating and just, parroting what I heard there. And everyone's like, that's a great idea. And I'm like, yes, it is, and guess what? We have a blueprint and a footprint of everybody that already did it. So to me, it was eye-opening to the horrible inefficiency of government. The fact that we were all doing the same things and nobody was willing to do it. And then here's this group, and all it took is us to show up, put in your time, but I don't want to minimize. I mean, that's way more than just making us get together. I mean, the facilitating and what we've, in the 6-7 years now, what we've graduated to. Before it would show up to meetings, we would do our stuff, and then we would take from it. Now with these small groups and bringing, the infrastructure people in and the one calls and everything, there are things, again, in that 1 hour, 2 hours a month that we were getting, it was 10 hours of my time, 20 hours of my time that I'd never be able to do, made me a better president for my municipality, made me a better government official. And it was all due to Connect. I don't tell that to anybody else outside this group, because I do think, it might take a little polish off my trophy if they think that I'm not the purveyor of all these great ideas. So I like that we keep. So that's our story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thanks, President Tim. And then, our most recent chair, who got to oversee us at the beginning of the pandemic that we're still in, Chair Reno, or immediate past Chair Reno, same questions,
All of them.
What have you done? Yeah, whichever one, but really, what have you taken back, and what has been challenging, and what do you want to share? Close us off.
With love, I'll ask you to mute your mic because I'm getting some feedback from you, our esteemed executive director. So I'm Brittany Reno. I am the council president in Sharpsburg. I applied for a vacant seat that opened up in 2015, and nobody was going to the council meetings. Nobody was really engaged on the local government level beyond the then 6 council people who were there and the mayor. So I put in my name, and nobody else did. So I got the position, was reelected a few times, and have been reelected council president for the past 2 terms. And within a year of me coming onto council, I actually had the past Connect executive director, Kristen Michaels, and the staff at the time, Lindsay, reach out to me and come out to Sharpsburg and just explain everything about what Connect was trying to do, who was working in it, what kind of issues they were working on. I'd never heard of the organization, but I was intrigued. So I started going to these meetings, not knowing what to expect. And it has just been probably, like Tim said, the best use of my time consistently every month for the past 4 years. I think what's really been driven home for me, and this is something that I deal with in my day job in community planning and engagement in a nonprofit locally, but the interconnected nature of all of these issues. None of these issues that our communities are facing exist in a vacuum, and none of our communities exist in a vacuum. So something that is happening to us affects the rest of us, whether it's directly or just by virtue of learning a new way to fix or address an issue that's hurting people in one community or another. or benefiting people in one community in the suburbs, but then hurting people in another community. What always wows me about this group is that I don't know who's a Republican or a Democrat in our group, and Tim will say he's the only Republican in Allegheny County, but he's not. There are others, and they're in our group, and I don't really know who they are because everybody is so focused on the provision of public services to their residents that none of these issues become political, except when it comes to advocacy. You know, we have to advocate for things as a group, but it makes it more powerful when we have this broad coalition of people across political boundaries, across all sorts of boundaries, physical, political, saying they want the same things for their people. So that's my bit. Happy to talk more.
Beautiful. Beautiful, like all of your souls. Thank you all, my Connect panelists. I think one thing is that we, without trying, get so Disney movie cheesy about everything that we're doing at every meeting. Someone almost always closes it with something that you can't help but kind of happy cry about. It's just such reasons to be cheerful, or reasons to, you know, have faith that we're going to get through stuff. The first meeting after the shutdown was in March, and I think we called every single one of you and said, you have to be on video. And that was Dave Miller. You know, our staff was kind of beside ourselves, like, what are we going to do? How are we going to get them to all convene? We've got this really big executive committee meeting March 26th. And Dave said, it has to be face to face. We have to be able to feel the feelings, and we have to stand together. And that's the only way we're going to get through it. And we got every single person on video that first meeting. And ever since then, I think we've had more engagement than ever. So lots of lessons learned. And with that, I'd love to open it up to a Q&A. I see Connie here is asking a question. Is it possible to share the PowerPoint? Absolutely, yes. I will give the slides to anybody who wants them. But yeah, feel free to use the chat, or maybe we're a small enough group just to open it up to everybody and have a conversation. But thank you for having us, Dave.
Okay. Let me start off then with, a couple of you commented about, the sense of community, whether it's in Harrisburg or in the surrounding communities. And something that struck me over the years, and I'm not a scholar, so this is just my own theory, which may have some validity and may not, is that we've tended over the past number of decades to encourage administrative efficiency, and have really not paid much attention to what the impact of that would be on community engagement. And this has been in government. We've certainly seen it with consolidation of school districts. And I'd be interested from your experience with Connect, is what impact have you seen on either retaining or rebuilding some of the community spirit that a lot of writers are saying is becoming a huge problem in US society and politics?
I'll address that a little bit, hopefully to your satisfaction. I came on council not knowing what to expect. I was really interested in federal politics, but not really familiar with local politics. So when I moved to town, I just started going to the council meetings down the street, and it was a sea of empty chairs in the audience with me plunked down in the middle, staring up at people I had never met. And they kept the lights on, they kept the finances strong, but there wasn't a lot of keenness to pursue new ideas or to revisit old legislation. So I will say, as I became comfortable on council, started introducing new ideas. Not all of them were popular, but some of them were, a lot of them were. But regardless, people started paying attention, and now we have a pretty full house when we have council meetings. So whether they are happy with what's going on or mad about what's going on, they're at least engaged in what's going on in a way that they definitely were not 5 or 10 years ago. And that for me is one of the most rewarding things. Even when they're screaming at me, I'm kind of happy because they actually give a crap. And I should say a lot of those ideas came from Connect, and then I'd think on them, I'd mull them over, I'd hear about how they were going in other communities,